Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I'm going to be showing you another fun new card which is coming out in the Shining Legends expansion in October. It's Spiritomb. Now, Spiritomb has a habit of having interesting cards. This one from Arceus probably being the best of the bunch. I mean, really, blocking item cards and allowing you to evolve from the deck, little bit absurd. But let's not forget this one that stopped you playing a spec card. Question being, of course, what's Spiritomb doing this time? Well, he's only got 60 HP, which is pretty terrible, although no weakness is a handy little bonus. No level ball, having been rotated, is a little bit of a pain, though, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, being a dark Pokemon means he's got all kind of advantages. The non-GX Yveltal, which allows you to attach energy to him, is nice. Obviously, Zoroark and Darkrai are both looking to see play, so there's plenty of dark decks that could slip one of these guys in if he was any good, if he warranted seeing some play. Now, the retreat cost of 2 is actually really annoying, but since the attack cost is 2, it's not terrible. But there is a really nice ability on Spiritomb, Cursed Vortex. If this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, the defending Pokemon cannot retreat, which means you chuck him up in the active, and then your opponent cannot retreat their Pokemon. Now, if this sounds a little bit familiar, it should. There was, of course, the Plasma Snorlax, which had the same ability. Snorlax in the active, your opponent cannot retreat. Yay! Now, this is actually really handy. One of my favourite uses for Snorlax was my friend Tommy Roberts, who used it against a Hawlucha. Now, Hawlucha's got a really nice attack, but it was only ever useful against EXs. And because it had free retreat, and it was played in stuff like Garchomp that had free retreat, a lot of these decks played few or no switching cards. So if you put a Snorlax in the active when a Hawlucha came out, then Hawlucha wouldn't be able to retreat or attack, and you could just deck your opponent out. Now, nowadays, we've got way too many ways around this particular ability. You can, of course, just switch or play Escape Rope or something like that. But we've also got things like Acerola, which allows you to pick up one of your damaged Pokemon. So if the Pokemon in the active is damaged, you can use Acerola, and the vast majority of decks will be playing Acerola going forward. It is an amazing card. Not to mention that we've got Garbodor still in the format, and we've got Alolan Muck, and Alolan Muck will block abilities of basics like Spiritomb. So let's get that out there straight away. Between Switch and Acerola and Garbodor, etc., there are many ways to get rid of this ability, but let's say that your opponent can't get around the ability. You could buy yourself turns. Now, one simple use for this, let's take a speed Darkrai deck. You need some turns to get dark energy on the field. As soon as you've got enough dark energy on the field, Breakpoint Darkrai will just sweep for the game. And that is awesome. But you need time to get all your energy on the field so that you can use Darkrai. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is where Spiritomb comes in. Stick them in the active, stop them retreating, build up all your energy off the bench, and then you can just get Spiritomb out the active and sweep with Darkrai, assuming your opponent can't get out the active. But of course, Spiritomb has an attack here which could, although incredibly slow, be incredibly fun here. For a dark and a colourless, place 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. And this is kinda cool here, because what you can do is just place 3 damage counters around the bench. Now again, 3 damage counters per turn is going to take a long time to get significant damage on the field. But if your opponent is stuck in the active with a Pokemon that they cannot retreat, especially if it's a Pokemon with which they cannot attack, this could be an awful lot of fun. And as a nice little side note here, if your opponent has no damage on the active Pokemon, they then are not able to use Acerola to move the damaged Pokemon. And that is frankly awesome. It doesn't do much damage, but Spiritomb is one of those cards where one of two things is going to happen. Either you stick them in the active and it's amazing, or you don't and it fails. It's as simple as that. But of course, we've already talked about just using it to buy time. That's awesome. Using it to just spread a bunch of damage around the field. That's awesome. Although if you're going that route, might I suggest some energy denial cards like Team Flare, Grunt and Crushing Hammer? Because of course your opponent is going to be trying to put energy onto attack and KO the pitifully low HP of Spiritomb, so you might need to get rid of their energy to do so. But let's say for argument's sake you drag up something like a Lapras, they're going to need free energy before they can KO you. Although they can use the attack to draw cards, I suppose. The other use for this card, I've kind of intimated it a little bit. Well, I gosh darn said it with Snorlax. Just deck your opponent out. This is a brilliant one-card tech, and bear in mind, if you're using it for this purpose, it doesn't have to just be in a dark deck. And what you do is essentially you wait until you think your opponent's used all of their switching cards. Now that Versus Seeker goes away, it's going to be much more difficult for them to save Acerola. And if you think your opponent has used all of their switching cards, what you can do here is you can play a Guzma, because Lysander's is rotating, bring up a bench Pokemon that cannot really attack, and then stick them in the active until they deck out and lose the game. Games can be won with Spiritomb, maybe by spreading damage around. Most likely, it's a late game tech, you whack it in the active, and for 3 or 4 turns your opponent cannot get out the active, and you win the game because they cannot draw a card at the beginning of one of their turns. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but it's gotta be worth a try. And that's why I'm gonna potentially slightly generously award Spiritomb 3 Wassies. It's not an amazing card, but I think you should have 1 or 2 in your binder, because if you want one more card in your deck, this could be it. Although do bear in mind that Guzma's also a switch, so nowadays people are going to have more switching cards in their deck because they've got Guzma, although again, they're not going to have Versus Seeker to reuse it in the late game. Now, if you think this is good, if you think this is bad, let me know. That's what the comment section is there for. Go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter @TheWassie, and come join me on Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. And if you are feeling in the mood to support the channel, get yourself over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio for bonus podcasts and more. The most important thing as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.